The highest suicide profession in the world is our veterinarians. And we've published that globally in top veterinarian journals. We've looked at construction workers. You can see what we have done. And our current study is on the legal profession. And we're also doing a lot of work in AI. And some of the comments that came today in terms of, how secure is my job, I think will definitely affect the happiness levels in terms of people in the world of work. So the legal profession is our next. But the one I'm going to focus on today is, is our work that we did with knowledge workers. And there we go. All right, so knowledge workers obviously be very important in terms of all businesses today. And the problem that we had to look at is that the factors that influence knowledge worker happiness in a software development organization, so we pulled the IT component together with happiness, had not been established. And so we went out to determine what were the factors. And having done the previous work with the veterinarians and, as you saw, construction people or whatever, this built our body of knowledge in terms of happiness in the work environment. So just for definition, Peter Drucker defined them as high-level workers who apply theoretical and analytical knowledge. So it's that the tacit sort of knowledge, innovation, creativity, and as Peter Drucker said, the most important, they would be incredibly valuable. So it's the people who can think and not the doers. So talking about AI, I think they're very, very important. And one of the things about these knowledge workers, specifically in the IT component, is that they're quite difficult to retain. I had a student who studied the intention to resign. We asked people, are you going to resign or whatever, but that was a different study. So why happiness? And I get quite a bit of academic flack, should I say, specifically from my HR colleagues, because they say to me, why don't you research engagement? Why don't you look at wellness and the mental wellness and all of that that's going on. So I see this as a subset of that, but I'm certainly not an HR person. So for me, it's really about, as I mentioned earlier, your lens, your frame, and how can we get people to frame their lives in terms of adopting the principles of happiness. So as the quotation here, the benefits are manifold in terms of the value that it adds to organizations and to self. So Seligman is one of the big happiness researchers in the world, and he spoke about flourishing. And flourishing, as you can see, includes some of the HR stuff like engagement, relationships, positive emotions, meanings, and accomplishment. So our methodology was positivistic. We sent out a survey, quantitative, and it was online, self-completion survey using the typical 5-point Likert scale, and the population consisted of knowledge workers and a software company in South Africa. Now, the interesting thing about the IT world and software developers specifically, we're seeing a lot of remote work being done in South Africa. So this company specifically works for Porsche in Germany, Mercedes Germany. Obviously, it's cost effective. The quality of the IT knowledge workers is of a really high standard. And so it was quite a unique sort of company to look at in terms of why these people here. And from a focus from the management is how can we get them to stay? And we thought that happiness would be one of those. So after the amount of research that we've done in this area, These were the factors that, based on literature, operationalization of literature, were our independent factors, and you can have a look at them. There were 9. And so we measured what effect did they have on the dependent factor, happiness in the workplace. We did exploratory factor analysis, and I've just selected some of the items and showing you how the factors loaded, the eigenvalues, and our Cronbach alpha test for reliability. And these factors we've used across all the professions and obviously improved and tweaked as we move. I was very happy to hear one of the gentlemen today mention Ubuntu, which is a very South African or African philosophy. I am because you are, and that's one of the factors that we're now bringing into our study with the legal profession. And we, of course, will be bringing in the caring factor. So every time it evolves, we try to come up with a better measuring instrument based on what we've done. And as a result of all this work, we are starting to, and I'm almost finishing developing a happiness maturity model, which I'll speak about right at the end. So these are just some of the factors in terms of the dependent factor and how they measured on the EF exploratory factor analysis. The correlations for Pearson and the p-values for the hypotheses were significant. And let me put up that. You can see in terms of what hypotheses were accepted. There were 2 that were rejected in the study, being optimism and purpose. And that resulted in our final model where we had 6 factors that loaded and were accepted as factors in the happiness of knowledge workers, being company pride, influence in the workplace, leisure, work relations, work satisfaction, and work-life balance. So why is this important? And I've just had this thought while I was sitting there. We're doing a lot of work in AI as well. And I think, to your point, to the keynote from Cincinnati, for me, it's all about people. So, yes, and how can we use AI and make people better? So that's really my sort of approach, which links very closely to the happiness work that we do. And it's a really simple equation. Happy employees make happy customers, make a happy business. It's really not rocket science. We arrived in the UK on Wednesday and had a meeting with the HR director of a big investment company. And we're going to be doing the same survey in their business to see the happiness levels in terms of that. So the maturity model that I spoke about is from a management and a strategic point of view, and I believe, and I hope to prove this, that if you're going to adopt happiness as part of your business culture, if it's going to be an approach to keep employees or retain employees, then it has to be part of your strategy and your KPIs. So we've started developing a maturity model where a business can actually measure and say, well, how are we doing in terms of happiness? And I think the important thing about this is that it must be authentic. It must be integrated. I think the problem that I have with a lot of the work or the evidence that I'm seeing in terms of engaging with employees, it's all tick box and not authentic. You know, it doesn't help for you to send me an email to say we're concerned about your happiness or your wellness because it's so insincere. And so that's what we're doing and loving it. And I think I'm in time, I don't know. So thank you for listening. And I don't know if you have any questions. Yes, sir.